Hey, 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 welcome to Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready minded, the podcast for the prepared. It is Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. Mountain. We are live on Facebook. We are live on YouTube. And if you are on YouTube watching live with us, make sure you hit that like and subscribe, or at least hit the like button so the algorithm knows that we are cranking out good content and we got some good things going on. So today we're going to talk about goals. And goals for 2026. We did do a whole setting of goals for 2025. I should have brought those up. I didn't even totally. I bet Shane's got his though to share. But we don't have Scott with us tonight. I can't remember what he told us. He did tell us he was going to be gone, but I can't remember why. I'm sure some kind of family event, something like that would keep him away from it. So have him in your. Just we're thinking about Scott. But everything's good. He just had a family event or something that took him away. But so Shane and I, ready to rock and roll, ready to give you our best ideas and advice about goal setting. Before we get started, though, I just want to remind you about our good affiliate program. Let me just share really quickly. Let's see, where is it? Here it is. I just want to share our affiliate program, the great products and services. If you are looking to get healthy, stay healthy, and do it in an affordable way, we have got a link for you, preppertalkradio.com/good life. And that will take you to an opportunity to either do it as an affiliate program yourself or just sign up so that you can get some great products and services in your body. We've got not services, sorry, but some great products in your body. There's multivitamins. I'm showing on the screen here. For those of you who are listening on the audio, you're not going to see this, but on the screen here, I'm showing a list of all the different products. There's vitamins, there's minerals, D3, K2. Going into winter, you need a lot more vitamin D, magnesium, proteins, super reds, super greens, all at prices that will blow your mind. I'm not even kidding. I've checked all over the internet, interwebs, for different prices on a lot of this stuff. They have great CBD oil. They have workout. They have joint pain relief. They have CBD pain relief cream. They have methylene blue, creatine, weight loss formulas, men's hormone support, women's hormone support, sleep support, just all kinds of liver support, black seed oil, the cure for everything but death, according to the interwebs. Anyways, go check out our website at preppertalkradio.com/good life to get in on some of the best products that you're going to find for your health, to get healthy, stay healthy, and do it in affordable ways. Hopefully, one of your goals for 2026 is to get healthy and stay healthy and do it in an affordable way. So if that's one of your goals, then we've got a great link for you there to be able to get some great products and services. But also remember our YouTube, our Facebook group, Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance. That's available too. And we are excited to be here tonight. Shane, how are you doing? How was your day?
It was just fine. Nothing spectacular, but a nice chill day, which doesn't happen all the time. So, but like you started out with, looking back, that's the first thing on my list. Looking back at the previous year, going over your goals, see what you hit and what you didn't. And I did look over them. I didn't compile them. My goal setting, I guess, habits are I say goals almost every day. And of course that has to do with work as well, but personal goals. And so my goals are kind of spread all over the place in different notebooks and such. That's something I should probably work on and actually what I started to write them out in one particular notebook for this next year. But yeah, looking back and, Mike, we congratulate you for meeting your, I don't know if you call it the ultimate goal, but it's one of my ultimate goals of retirement here is in the next couple of years, hopefully for myself, but at the end of this year for Mike. And that's freaking awesome. Very jealous. Very, very cool. But then looking forward and I've got some particular things that I go through, strategy, I guess you could say it for setting goals. And, and like the way Scott labeled this is, goal setting for the prepper's way, right? And I believe there's a way to set goals for business. And Paris and I are going to talk about a lot of different categories, from work, financial, emotional, and so on and so forth, different types of goals and ways to set your goals for the different categories in life. And prepping for me is life. So most of my goals, honestly, are about preparedness and prepping in the future and family and so forth. And so my particular take on this is definitely focused on being a prepper and making goals for preparedness.
Yeah, I actually have my goals from 2024, but I just been looking for my goals for 2025 just to see if I can find out where they went. Clearly, I did a wonderful job of staying on track with my 2025 goals if I don't even know where they are in my drive here. You know what? Maybe I did it on because I searching right now in my Google Drive. That's usually where I do it, but sometimes I do my goals. Wonder if I did it in Word this
Well,
year.
I have notebooks, and that's the way I do it. I don't usually do it on my computer, but and I do review those pretty much every Sunday, going back through, and it's more of a list of to-dos that gets circulated, that gets recycled, and gets reframed and changed. I change my goals all the time. I'm very flexible with my goals, and for some things, obviously there are longer term goals that I'm not flexible with. That I think most of these, we talk about SMART goals, and with those types of long term goals, I really stick to the the time bound goals where you can measure your progress. But I think for a lot of my personal goals, most of them are very short term, and that way I can see progress from day to day, week to week, month to month, and so I don't really get discouraged, and I make changes on the fly.
That's awesome. I just like, I've read the book Atomic Habits recently. Actually, I read it the second time. I just feel like some of these, I read a book and it just really is so good. And then I just sometimes will move on to the next book. And then I realize, you know what? Why keep searching for wisdom in the next book if I didn't really fully address the wisdom in the last book? And reading something once for me is not enough. I need to read it a couple of times. And one of the things that he talks about in there, yeah, of course, he says that, thumbs up, goal setting is good. But one of the things he says that the real key to success in life isn't necessarily setting goals, but it's also creating a plan to achieve those goals. But it's more importantly is who are you, or who do you need to be? What habits do you need to have in order for you to be able to achieve the goals naturally? A lot of times we set goals and then we try to change our identity or change ourselves to fit those, like, oh my gosh, I want to be, for example, traditional goal, first of the year, get out of debt or lose a bunch
Go
of
to the
weight.
gym. Yeah.
So one of the things that he talks about, he says that's a great goal to have, and you can create a plan to do that. But if you don't change your habits around how you believe and your beliefs, you're not going to, doesn't matter how good of a plan you have and or how worthy of a goal you might have, it's going to be really hard for you to accomplish that goal and follow the plan. And so he talks a lot about developing the habits and the beliefs. So for example, if you wanted to lose weight in the first of the year, you should consider redefining your identity as a person of maybe you want to say, I'm an athlete, or I'm a healthy person. What would a healthy person do in this situation? Would they eat the cake or would they refrain from the cake? And of course, if it's at a birthday, you can indulge. But if it's like just a random weekday and you're like, oh, I got that cake right there, a healthy person wouldn't do that. An athletic person wouldn't do that. So you develop the habits and the beliefs around what would a healthy person do? What would an athletic person do? The other part of it on, for financial stuff is that, the reason why I'm in debt is because of the habits I've had in the past. And the goals, you might have a goal to get out of debt. Well, that's great. That's a worthy goal. And you might have a plan where you're like, okay, I'll do the snowball method. I'll do the avalanche method. I'll do whatever method. And I'll put this much money toward it every month and, we'll get it done. Well, that's great. But what got you into debt in the first place? What, if you have a habit of overspending, or maybe you're willing to give in to a temptation, I think that it's really important to recognize that in setting goals, you have to also think about who you are as a person and what got you to the place where you are. And then think about, okay, I may need to change in setting your goals for the future. You want to set realistic goals for yourself, but also realistic under the auspice of who am I and who do I want to be? And are these the goals that will help me get there? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like that. I think the thing that comes to mind is, I think for a time, and maybe it still is popular, but the vision boards, right? For
Oh yeah.
quite a while, putting a vision board up on your wall of what you wanted to. It seemed like a lot of them that I saw were about, okay, I want this car, I want this house, this is what I want to achieve, I want to, financially, this is where I want to be. And of course, there's some lifestyle, obviously, things within the vision boards you can put up. But like you said, that vision needs to match who you are, and not. Well, let me restate that. We're all. I'm trying to become a better person, no doubt, absolutely trying to change. But is there, with like a vision board, is there some outside pressure to become or to have things to make you popular or to fit in or to, if is it focused around possessions, or is it focused around the more important things? Like when I think about prepping, yes, we're gearheads, no, absolutely, and you got to have a lot of stuff, but we don't have the stuff just to have stuff, right? If it's a
Mhm.
car, a big house, it's, it kind of has other purposes. If you have a huge family, okay, that's one thing, right? But to have a Lamborghini on your vision board, that doesn't quite meet the prepper theme, if you know what I'm, trying to say here. Is and that vision board I think can be helpful. I know people have shared their stories of where I had this on my vision board. I took the vision board away. I didn't look at it. And, several years later, I came back to look at my vision board, and lo and behold, I have the
There it
car and
was.
the house and everything that's on that vision board, right? Okay. That's great and all. But if it's not, in my opinion, if it's not grounded in um, real values, uh, especially when it comes to prepping. I mean, we do this I do this not just for myself, but for my family, for those in my family who aren't awake, who don't see what I see. And that's a whole nother conversation. But um, I think, like you're saying, Paris, is you don't want to change to become someone else's goals, right? I don't
Mhm.
know if I'm communicating that properly, but
Yeah, let me show you this. This is kind of the this is kind of the idea about SMART goals. Is we talked about earlier. What is a SMART goal? Of course, you don't have a dumb goal, but you also, so SMART is an acronym that stands for specific. So you want to measure it, and then S is for specific, M is for measurable, A is for achievable, R is for realistic. Achievable could also be attainable,
Mhm.
like whatever. T is for timely, or put a time frame on it. So to give you an example, I want to get out of debt. Well, what does that mean? To be specific, I have
Mhm.
$5,000 on my credit card that I need to pay off. Okay, that's specific. $5,000 you need to pay off on two credit cards, let's say. A measurable. Okay, what is the measurable goal? I want to pay off $5,000. Well, now you got an exact dollar amount that's specific and measurable. Is it achievable? Well, if you don't have a budget in place where you have an extra or positive cash flow, probably not achievable. The reason why are you in debt in the first place? Maybe you had a medical expense, maybe you had an emergency, maybe you had something come up that was way out of your control, maybe you lost your job. But if it's achievable, if you can say, you know what, if I'm going to put my head to it and do it, I can achieve it because I'm going to work through my budget, I'm going to trim up my expenses, I'm going to make sure I'm making some good income, and I'm going to have some positive cash flow so I can put towards that debt. That's achievable. Realistic is it's totally realistic to be able to pay off $5,000 of debt, unless you say the time frame is by February. Unless you got an extra $5,000 to come in
Mhm.
January, you're not going to be able to pay that off that fast. So it's not realistic. So let's say, for example, you want to say, okay, in 2026, I got 5,000 on two cards that I want to pay off. Well, if you have an extra $400 a month, you can do it. 400 times 12 is 4,800 bucks. Throw in an extra 200 every once in a while, and voila, your $5,000's paid off. That was specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. You had a time frame by the end of the year. Those are some ideas. That's an example of how to use the SMART goal system. So in the prepper world, it might be, you know what, I have a very specific, I want to get, here's an example of us using the SMART goals. I want to get more food storage. Well, what does that mean? More food storage? Is it, okay, I want to get 3 months of food storage for each person in my family. That's a specific goal. Is it measurable? Yes, because 3 months worth of food storage. Is it achievable? Well, let's see. Do you have the cash flow for it? Do you have a plan to maybe be able to get the money together so that you can purchase that? Or are you going to do it the good old fashioned way where you just add a little extra to you can go buy a freeze dried, you can go buy, something specific that's packaged for that, or you can just say, you know what, I'm going to put together a list of everything that my family eats, and I'm going to make sure I have 3 months worth of all of that. And then your 3-month pantry is done, and you just go buy a little extra every month, every week at the grocery store, or however often you go to the grocery store. Totally achievable, totally realistic. And if you do it within a time frame, you can say, well, I want to do it before the zombies come. Well, that's not very time frame oriented. You got to have something more specific. Okay, I want to do it in the first 6 months of the year. I want to make sure I have a month's worth of food by the third quarter. I want to have a second month, and by the end of the year, I want to have all 3 months set aside time.
Mm-hmm.
That's perfect. That's a smart goal. That's prepper oriented, prepper related. And so
that's
those
actually
are just some examples.
That was my first example goal I set for myself already. And, one thing I wanted to, I guess, bring up first is don't wait. Don't put this off till the first of the year. Whenever I think of a goal and I think, well, I'll start this on Monday. No, I'm just going to start it right now. I'm going to start it, tomorrow morning, something like that. Right. I don't see any reason to put it off, for most goals in particular. So my matching smart goal was for 2026, I plan to double my food storage from 1 year to 2 year for 8 people. And
Wow.
I'm doing that in just the basics. So like wheat, rice, oats, honey, those types of things, very basics in number 10 cans. And I also have to have a plan to create the space for it as well. That's quite a bit of space.
Yeah.
And I really, at the moment, I don't have anywhere to put it, but I do have a plan to how I'm going to accomplish that. And that is getting a shipping container, actually, and
nice.
Moving some other supplies, other storage items into that, so I can put this new food in my conditioned space. And so for me, I've already kind of budgeted this out. It's really only a couple $1,000s, and that's my main smart goal for next year is to double in long shelf stable foods. So
that's awesome, dude.
I have a whole list as well for other shorter term goals.
Yeah. So one of the things we talk about that in my family anyways is what areas of your life do you want to have a goal in? And so we talk about, financial goals, business and financial goals are kind of related, work related goals. Utah Mike just said that he had a goal to retire at the end of this year, and he nailed it. And so that's a kind of a work / financial goal. There's a lot that goes into his planning from here forward now. That's because once you hit a goal, it's like the mountain. Once you crest a mountain peak, you look on to the range and you see, oh, there's more mountains. So once you hit a goal, be ready to set the next one. And maybe and it's totally fine to take a break between goals and to really kind of relax. But the main goals, I usually do goals in 4 or 5 areas. One is business and financial. 2 is spiritual. And some of the goals that I have spiritually speaking. And I'm not talking about like, oh, I'm going to ascend to some higher plane of, enlightenment or anything like that. But just some goals, for me are like how often I want to attend temple, and how often do I want to go to, church? How often do I read my scriptures, and how often am I going to do family things, family stuff like that? So, I think that's really, and then there's intellectual goals. Like, what do I need to do to become a better person intellectually and, philosophically, just with my mind. And then physical goals, like what do I want to accomplish? Do I want to I work out every day? My wife and I actually just invested in a home sauna. And so we're going to have a nice sauna in our home. And so one of my goals would be to do that several times a week. The company that we have our affiliate with, this health food company, they're going to do shortly. They're coming out with a parasite cleanse. And that's a goal that I have, is to do a parasite cleanse to my health and physical goals, to be healthy. And so there's just some other things too. And one of the goals that I have this next year is just to really get to the point where I have some serenity and some tranquility and I just want to, I'm not, woo woo. I don't want to be a Zen master or anything like that, but I want to be able to kind of just sit back and say, you know what, I've got things under control. I'm self-reliant. I'm self-sufficient. I've got, if any emergency came at me, I'd be able to do that. And I think Field Tac really said something here that I really want to address as I go through this thought process. If something happened to you, would your family continue your prepping plan, or would they let it fade away? And that's a really good question, because I was talking to my wife about this recently. And she's like, Paris, if something happened to you, I don't even have our bank account logins. And I'm like, wow, so there's some planning. Part of my goals for this next year is to make sure that everybody in my family knows what the plans are and the goals are, and that they can carry them out. So in case I happen to have something happen to me, everybody knows what to do and what to do next. What I do find interesting, though, Peel Tack, is that it's kind of, and it's interesting because my kids who have grown out and left the house and they're on their own now, they will say things to me like, "Hey, Dad, we're thinking about getting some food storage. What do you think?" I'm like, I didn't even bring it up. Like they just know Dad's so into it that and I didn't really force it down their throat or anything weird. It was always cool. Hey, Dad, they always know that if it's the upstairs pantry is empty, they go down to the downstairs pantry and they can refill the upstairs pantry. That's just how my household has worked for the last 4 years in this new, since I moved to Utah. And I think it's just been now ingrained in at least the 3 youngest kids. Their whole lifestyle is now recognizing that, hey, that's a good way to live, and it works, and it's actually quite convenient and quite comfortable. And so I'm hoping that my kids will at least carry on that part of prepping, is just always having those, 2 or 3 in the basement, or 2 or 3 extra of everything, so that if something runs out, they don't have to run to the store. They can just run downstairs or run to another room and just fill in the pantry. So that's just something that I was thinking.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And, and I was thinking about that while you're chatting as well. My kids, they do that as well. And, we have a remote location as well. And my kids, some of my older kids express interest in, hey, I want to come help with the greenhouse when you're putting that up. And so I think to an extent it would continue on, but, life gets in the way. I think without some serious dedication, I think most everything would fall off, would fade away. But I do have, quite a few things set in motion that, like with a trust and a will and so forth, and certain documents that, I've got stashed in particular locations that if anything were to happen to me, okay, here's the process, here's the procedure of how to move forward. Here, what I desire of you as my family to continue on in what we're doing here, right? Of course, that's worst case, but I also wanted to go back and touch on first looking back at your previous year's goals. And what I've come to realize for myself is that many of my goals have gone on from year to year to year. And that's really because the priority is not the highest, right? It's not entirely relevant, and life changes, things change. And so I've been flexible, and yes, sometimes I see those goals, man, had this on my list for 4 or 5 years now, and I feel a little bit, a little bit sad and despondent about that. But I've also come to realize, that is not a really high priority goal, and so I haven't made the SMART goals with that particular goal, and so it's a lower priority. There's also what I call stretch goals. And I've done this before, and I was actually, able to hit that. You guys know that I have this particular property, and that was one of my stretch goals. And that was definitely a SMART goal. And it was like Mike said here, he also commented that he put something on that his goals that was maybe seemingly unachievable. And I don't know if you actually, achieved that, Mike, but I think that's a smart idea to do, is have at least one stretch goal, maybe not too many, because you don't want to overdo it or overwhelm yourself, but have a stretch goal that if things fall together, if you're willing to work hard enough, that you can reach that goal, and with some luck and with some blessings as well, be able to reach those goals. But also, I'm still carrying those other goals I haven't hit forward in my next year. And again, they're toward the bottom of the list. And I'll make a list, and I'll prioritize it, and I'll reprioritize it. And as months go by, I'll reprioritize it, because things change. And this is all about budgeting as well. There's obviously a lot of budgeting in there, and medical expenses come up, things come up, and priorities have to change. And also, just with experience, in being out on the land and getting the greenhouse up, and then realizing, oh, I need to do this first before that, and just making those changes on the fly, and not feeling the need to say, no, I have to do this first because that was my goal. I don't think that's important. But also part of my goal setting process is making a list of what I might expect in the next year, in 2026. So it is a very much doomsday list of all the things that could potentially happen in 26. And to be honest, almost everything I can think of is on the table for this next year. So keep that. Some things are very general and some things are very specific. I know that doesn't mean a whole lot, but as I go through my list, and of course, this has to do with what you're seeing out there and what you expect might happen, what's in the news, and so on and so forth. About, okay, I see this happening. How do I prepare for this event? I see gold and silver taking their moonshot, and I don't have enough. How do I build that before it becomes more unaffordable?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of flexibility that has to happen. Okay, I have to bump this goal back to now try and reach this other goal, which has bumped up in priority. Like I said, maybe like precious metals. Maybe, I mean, that's always important to me. But also having a goal set for how much you want to have, like you say, in savings, in gold and silver, and in food storage, whatever it might be, and then being able to be realistic with yourself, saying, okay, I see I have more time. I'm going to step this back and just vary the goals a little bit. And maybe it's more of a checklist than a set of goals, because it can be flexible. If that makes sense to you, how I go about my goal setting. And it's constant. It happens almost every day sometimes.
Well, it sounds to me more like you live via a plan than a goal. One thing that's cool about goals is that it kind of gives you a target to shoot for. And if you don't have a target to shoot for, it doesn't matter what you're aiming at. So the goal gives you something to aim at. And then a plan is like, how are you going to live your life? And that goes back to the thing that I talked about earlier about habits. Like, what are your habits and beliefs? For me, I don't really need to set a goal anymore to read my scriptures every day, because it's so ingrained in my daily life now that I can't imagine not working out. I can't imagine not reading my scriptures. I can't imagine not sitting down like every night before I go to bed. I do some. Now, one of the goals that I have is, because my nightly routine varies widely based on just whatever happens that day. But I kind of want to set a goal where every night at 8:00, I just hit the stop button, hard stop, and then I start my nightly routine. That way I have more time to journal, because one of my goals is to journal. I want to start journaling. And if I can journal a few minutes before I start my reading, or maybe I can read first and then journal afterwards. But there's some things, like, that's one of the cool things about Atomic Habits. It says, if you want to start a new habit or have a new goal, stack it. One of the ways that he tells you how to do it is stack it with a goal or a habit that you already do well, so that it's super easy. Like, I already read every night, so it would be super easy for me to just stack journaling right after that, or on top of that. Every time I read, I'll just take a few notes about my thoughts on what I read, and maybe I only read, I read several books at a time, actually. And each book has a different, subject and so I can just make some notes about what I thought and what I read, and do that. And then I can journal about my day after that. Just one thing that once you start a thing, it's easier to keep going. The hard part is getting it started. And so some of the goals that I think are available to us are easy to think about and want to do, but then disciplining our habits and our lifestyle to do that. I just read a book too, finished reading a book called by Dan Martell called Buy Back Your Time. And in that book, he talks about several ways to have more time freedom and how to really be more efficient with your time. And one of the things he talks about is time blocking. I have tried time blocking, and for some reason, I just couldn't get my head wrapped around it. And I think I was doing it wrong, because the way he explains it in this book was way more effective. He says, what I would do is I'd time block in the morning I do this, early morning I do this, late morning I do this, early afternoon I do this, late afternoon I do this, evening I do this. He says, instead of doing that, just what are you really good at, and just do that for the whole day. And then the next day do something else you're like, or whatever, like plan it where you're doing more. And sometimes during the day I'm really high and up and ready to just conquer the world. And some there's a couple points of the day where I'm just tired. And that's, so the time frames where you're really energized, that you should time block more of your important tasks. The time when you're kind of just slugging through the day and you're kind of a little bit more, just struggling to get some energy, those are the times when you either need to schedule your workout or schedule eating or something else where you can actually get that energy, curve back faster. And so I thought that it was something that I hadn't thought of before, where it's just to block my day based on my energy, and also block my day based on what my zone of genius. Like, I don't like, sometimes I'll do I'll do an hour block on my business, and then I'll have a break where I'll be like, oh, let me check emails. And before I know it, I'm on Instagram and Facebook doom scrolling. And I'm like, how did I get here? No, so he's like, don't leave any time between things. Just go straight to the next thing. And I was like, that's probably what I did wrong. I was just giving myself a break, and I wasn't working in my zone of genius. So I think part of goal setting is also determining, like, who do you want to become and who do you want to be in 2026? Now, I really like what you said, Shane, because you talked about goals should be a little bit, flexible. For example, I have a goal to have a certain dollar amount saved. My wife and I are planning a trip, for her 50th birthday, which is in a couple years. And so we're planning a nice trip. And so we're putting aside money every month for that to be able to hit that goal. But then I realized, and that's just an example of one financial goal. But what I also realized is that 2026, I don't know if you guys saw the World Economic Forum or, The Economist. The Economist had had their projection for 2026. And of course, The Economist it's written for the elite, by the elite, to the elite, etc. And there's a bunch of weird things on there about what they're planning for 2026. Now, every year these things come out where they project the next year, and we survived every one of them so far, so good. But this one was a little bit odd about how the economy, they have a bunch of graphs of where the economy crashes and they rebuild this other. Anyways, I'm just thinking maybe 2026 is the year where I do a little less in the stock market and a little more in the silver and gold market. And maybe another thing too, that I just kind of did a little count in my coffers a little bit. And my wife and I were like really surprised when the silver shot up. I kind of calculated how many ounces I have and at the price it is now. And I'm like, dang, I'm grateful that I bought the ounces of silver that I bought. And she's like, let's buy more. I'm like, so that's, I reached out to Shane actually this last week, and I was like, hey Shane, where do you buy your silver? What are some of the best prices right now? Best spot prices, or pardon me, not the spot price. Spot price is the same everywhere, but what's the best
the best premium?
Who has the best premiums right now? And so I'm looking to buy some more silver, which is cool. But if the economy changes, your goal to put more money into your 401k might be better to put some of that money into silver and or gold and get some more food storage. Because one thing that's for sure is that if the stock market crashes, the banks crash, energy goes out, you're always going to have a need for food, and you're always going to have a need for shelter and some of those basics. And those are the things that are going to be, it's good to have your money in things that appreciate, but it's also good to have your money in store of value. And then from there, like things like food and other things to be able to get you through hard times. So I would definitely have a balance of your goals, because the world is at large is going to be, they're going to do their 2026 goals like every other year, but we need to be thinking about what's really going on in the world economy and the world stage. And maybe we need to do a little more hunkering down. Like my wife and I talked about, we're actually going to set aside some money to get her a Second Amendment utensil this next this next year. And do you like how I said that? Second Amendment utensil? And we're going to get some more precious metals as well that are brass related. And so we're going to go over to Ready Gunner here in Utah in the next couple of weeks and see what they have for deals for Christmas and stuff like that. They always have their 12 days of Christmas. At least the last several years, they have their 12 days of Christmas deals. And I'm kind of looking forward to those so that we can get some deals on that. So those are some of the things that I've been thinking about for goals, and then maybe shifting from the traditional goal setting to more of a preparedness mindset goal setting.
Well, you see, that's where all my goal setting pretty much is. kind of sad to say, but I was thinking is maybe I'm being a little too what's the right word? I'm being a little too vague with my goals here, being a little too complicated. I really like to keep it simple when it comes to preparedness and survival. Like you're saying, Paris, is I think everybody needs to be more preparedness focused this next year, because as we go along, it's only getting worse. And that's something I wanted to mention to you, Paris. I was, I keep thinking about timeline, right? I'm always kind of chatting with you about timeline. I think I kind of figured out where we're at. So I'll get with you later on that. But I of course, every year we go along, we have less time to get prepared. And so to keep it simple, to keep it basic, I always start, and I've said this a million times, with the survival rules of 3, right? If I know a lot of people listening to this are just getting started, we get new people joining our group almost every day that say, hey, I'm new and I'm just getting started, need help. And so the place to start is with the survival rules of 3. And that helps develop priority for goals, right? So with the number 1 being shelter, number 2 being water, number 3 being food, as in you can only survive 3 hours in harsh weather without shelter, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. And I also have security in there, so safety. And that means self-defense, having that, like you say, that implement that tool with you all the time. And that could even be place number 1, because you only have seconds to defend yourself if that's the case. If you find yourself in that situation. So
it was funny. So when I have Utah Mike just said something about how if you believe in precious metals, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And that's my belief. And so I have a significant, and you do too, Shane, you got a safe right behind you in this very picture that we're watching.
What are you talking about?
So don't look at that. But the idea there is that, my wife was like, we don't have an alarm system. I'm like, yeah, we do. We got our dog and we got my gun, or my Second Amendment utensil. And so those are some things that, and again, that's not an end all be all, because they could sneak in and I could still stay asleep. And there's some things that you think about, but that was just kind of a funny thing that I was thinking about. Like, safety is important. My wife and I just had our bank accounts breached, and we didn't lose any. Well, we did end up losing some money, but it wasn't significant. But we had to change our bank accounts, and that's been just so frustrating to have to do. But even cybersecurity, not just physical security. Anyways, I totally hijacked your comment though, Shane. So
no, it's I totally appreciate that. It's priority wise, there's questions about precious metals and there's the thought that and we've mentioned this a bunch of times, just trying to figure out how to say this, I guess, kindly and easily, is that when the markets collapse, what will actually be there? What, like Mike said, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Can you actually hold, your bank account? Dollars, cash, sure, they'll have some value. But right now, what we're seeing with gold and silver taking off, and it's not just gold and silver, it's assets, tangible assets in particular. It's, I mean, you look at platinum and palladium, which I'm not honestly a huge fan of, but that's where things are going. And I'm slaughtering this, but financial assets are going away, in my opinion.
Well, even barterable assets are good. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like we said, food storage, things that have, that are going to help curb what's going to happen here with again in 26 with the interest rates going up again. They are going to go up, even though the Fed's dropping them. The inflation continues to go up, especially with the government printing more and more. They've stopped QE and are going to start. They've stopped QT. They are going to start QE, and that just means more inflation.
Mm-hmm.
So that means other assets are going to go down and others are going to go up, and I think we're seeing that right now. So to not be too critical. Again, if you don't hold it, you don't own it, and there is a certain point where I have said I have enough, right? And I don't believe that you should continue to buy to the detriment of your other preps, right? Of
Exactly.
paying off your debts, of getting food storage, of your training, of your and that should be part of your goals this next year as well. It's part of mine is additional training, additional skill building, and like you say, also your physical goals and your spiritual goals. But I think you can get to the point where you have too much of something.
Yeah, you got to balance.
And that's a really hard thing, I think, with goals is, and like I said, with my initial goal is to double my food storage this next year. And I could get into that, why I feel that's necessary, but that's kind of outside the window of the conversation today. But just trying to focus on those essentials, the survival rules of 3, to tell you where your priority should be in getting your preps in.
Well, here's another example of a good idea for goal setting. We just had this last week, it snowed for the first time in Utah, and in several other states had their first snow of the season. And there were more accidents than I care to. I'm just like shocked how many, like, do people forget how to drive? Maybe there was their tires weren't prepared for it, or I don't know what, but you got to have your stuff in order first. That winter is coming, for goodness sakes. One thing that happened on one of the major highways in my town is called Highway 6. It's actually one of the most dangerous highways in the nation for accidents and things of that nature. And so this storm hit and they shut down the highway, and people were stranded in the snow because the accidents were so robust that they were stranded. And not just here in I'm talking about, this has been all over the country, but people were stranded for hours. So if that's the case, do you have your car kits? Do you have your food, your water, your shelter? Do you have warm clothes? Do you have all that stuff? Do you have extra fuel? And that's the kind of stuff, like, genuinely, and you don't think about, you're just doing your normal commute from, we're going over to my dad's house or whatever. One of our guys, one of my friends, his son barely beat the snow because he went over early. But he went right through that same area, and we don't think about having a whole big prep with just going to grandpa's house or going over to do this or just going into town, so it's important to remember that at least in a car trunk, you should have some essentials, and have that. I would say that should be a goal for everybody, is to have a kit ready to go in every car. In fact, I just ordered Survival Frog. I just ordered another jumper cable kit, of portable jumper cables for my other car. And I ordered some extra, like those they call them bivy sleeping bags.
Mm-hmm.
And those are like high end. I guess, the Mylar emergency blankets are like the low end, and these are like high end that. And so I ordered several of those for to fill out the need for my family. And so I'm trying to think about different things. Like, what are one of the good things about a new year or setting goals is do an inventory. I mean, Shane, you already talked about looking to the past to see what you want to do for the future, but also do an inventory. Like, okay, where are you with your food storage? How much rice? Mm-hmm. I know Utah Mike just said that he has too much rice. But where are you with your rice?
The hard part about that is if you're buying from a distributor, from a retailer, and they say this is many servings, in their kits, you don't want to go by servings, you want to go by calories.
Yeah.
And that is the hard part you've got to figure out how many calories am I going to use in that situation, or my kids, and so on and so forth, and then do the math. And that's quite a bit when it comes down to trying to get a year's worth of food storage. But that should be part of your planning as well. It's like, okay, I need X amount of calories I've seen, plenty of family and friends who say, yeah, we've got a year's worth of food storage or 6 months for 4 people. And it barely fills the corner of one room. I'm like, you should count your calories on
Yeah.
that, because I'm pretty sure. But like you're saying with those bivy bags and such, that's shelter, right? That should be
Uh-huh.
first priority is shelter. And that could be your home. It could be your apartment, it could be your vehicle. It could
Yeah,
be an
in your
RV,
vehicle
a
for
cabin,
sure.
whatever.
Like, especially you need to winterize your car and winterize your
Hmm.
how we already did a whole episode on winterizing. But those, in my opinion, those should be some prepper goals that you should have, is to say, hey, do I have a kit for every car that will get me through whatever is in your area? Like our area is, we have snow during the winter and it can hit hard. Maybe you have hurricanes where you are. And so you need to be prepared for a hurricane that potentially come through or whatever to grab and go. And so just whatever it is that wherever you live, whatever your conditions are, your natural disaster potentials, have a plan, have a goal to be prepared for those things, and then create a plan to get yourself prepared for that. And then of course, life, we all need to be having good goals for life, and just understanding we all need to make more money. We all need to be more disciplined with our spending. We all need to be, eating better. We all need to be healthier. So, because one of the things that I think about is that when crap hits the fan, pharmacies aren't going to be around, and you can only order so many Jace kits, before you're going to, at some point, you're going to eventually run out of medicine. And so you got to be healthy enough to either get through that or start making some arrangements now. My wife has a couple of medicines that she's taking, and she's just really feeling the real pull to kind of wean off of some of them as much as she can and find more herbal and natural remedies. She got hit hard with some real major health issues, so we just used the pharmaceuticals to get us through it. And so now that she's stabilizing, she's slowly weaning off, and she's doing pretty well. And I'm pretty proud of her for doing that. And she's gotten down to about half on some of the medicine she's taking, and she's doing okay. So far, so good. So that's another goal to have, is is part of your physical and health goals should be like, what am I doing with my medicines? What am I doing with my pharmaceuticals? Do I have a stash to get me through to be able to wean off of it? Because there's legit withdrawals from some of these pharmaceuticals that you need to be worried about. And I would suggest that when you're looking at your goals for the next year, don't set goals to then just have goals to set goals with the idea in mind that you're going to be a different person and you're going to be a better person at the end of next year. If you're better by 1% every day next year, you're going to be 3 times the person you are today, because it's 365 times 1%, right? That's 365% increase in your skill set, whatever. I just recently, I haven't had a physical goal. Like my goal is lift weights every day, but I haven't had a goal to like lift a certain amount of weight. Like some guys are like, oh, I want to bench whatever. I want to, curl whatever. And I actually just it's not the most I used to be a lot more into it. And I had an injury in my shoulders. And so I've rehabbed and I've rebuilt back, and I'm moving back towards being able to bench some decent weight at least for my body weight. And I went up 10 pounds, and I was like, I've never done this by myself. I didn't have a spotter. I was a little nervous, but I went up 10 pounds and I did it. And I was like, woohoo. So sometimes goals just fall into your lap, and so you can just as you become the person you want to become, you'll start to see areas where you can work on to be better. And I think that's the one thing that I've noticed in my life, is that the more, like, I've been reading a lot of books on philosophy and stoicism, and I've come to realize that I have a few things that I need to work on about my anxiety, about my, my propensity for anxiety and panic and worry. And so I've learned how to do a few things by reading. My wife says, you need to see a therapist. I said, I do. I have a bibliotherapist. A bibliotherapist is a book therapy. I read to get my therapy. So I have goals to continue that. Those are the kinds of things that I have goals for. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think kind of my closing thought is that it's obvious that each of us have different vision of what the future is going to look like, of what 2026 can look like. Obviously, mine is much more bleak than Utah Mike's, and so my goals are oriented toward my beliefs and my vision. But I think so. I think that's the important part is figure out what your vision is for the future for this coming year, and set your goals accordingly. And of course, with the using the survival rules of three as kind of a guide, I think that helps create priority. And then, of course, expanding to family and so forth. But one thing I've learned, and I've shared this before, is that reaching out and trying, and if you don't see a vision, so part of this vision is that, okay, this is where I want to be. This is where I feel I need to be, to have a place for my family, like this location. I said, I've got my bug out location, and that was part of my plans for years and years and years, and I finally achieved it. And so I just want to say, if you cannot see that vision, if you can't see where you're going or how you're going to get there, the best way to get there, for me, the only way to get there is through prayer, is through, of course, hard work and faith and prayer, and eventually you'll get there. Of course, if your vision is aligned with the will of our Heavenly Father, and if your plans are realistic, I guess you could say, then things will happen for you, and you'll be able to reach your goals. And if it's not working out, maybe something needs a little tweaking, right? Something needs a little bit of adjustment. And for me to step back, like, I still want to build my cabin up there. That's a big goal for me. That's huge. And at the very moment, I don't see how that's going to happen. I mean, I do in the very long run, but in short term, I don't really see. But I still have that on my list. I'm still working toward that. And with some luck and with some blessings, I'll accomplish that, because I feel that's an important goal for me and my family, and what my vision is of the future.
I think something that I want to just, my closing thoughts are, if you're going to have a vision of the future, go a little crazy don't be so, you want to be, you don't want to say, I want to grow 5 more feet tall, and so I can dunk a basketball without having to jump anyway. I mean, those are weird, but go a little crazy. Maybe you're saying to yourself, you know what, I want to have a business, a side hustle that pays me a couple $1,000s a month that I can build next year. Well, sometimes that feels like it's totally out of touch, but what if it's not? What if you could do it? What if there was just one contact or one book or one idea away from accomplishing something that's a little crazy? And what's cool about having a good, strong cash flow is that you can afford all of your preps. You can afford your gear. You can afford your food. You can afford the water. You can afford the shelter. You can afford to have, I just found a guy that I'm reading a new book. I just started a new book last night called Launch. And in that book, he talks about how he's helped several people who are entrepreneurs launch their business, and they had no idea what they were doing or how they were. In many cases, he says several of them. One guy was an herbologist, and he had a board game that he created to help people learn about herbs and medicines and how to use herbs for medicine. And I thought that's a great idea. So he helped this guy launch that thing, and his first. On his own, he sold like 12 of the game, and then he actually went through this guy's program, and the next time he did it, he sold almost 700 of the game and made 20 grand. And now he makes I think he has a 6 or 7 figure, I think he has a 7-figure business now, because he's selling so many of these games and other courses and other things. So it's like, did he believe that he could do that the first year or when he set out to do it? No, but he accomplished something because he learned and he was able to create something amazing. And I was like, you know what? I want to get that board game. Like, I want to learn more about herbs and how to use herbs for medicine. And that's one of my goals this next year, is to learn how to do more of that. And I'm going to get Nicole Pellion's a couple of her books too. So anyways, don't think, I would say, set goals. And then think about, what would it take? What about 10xing those goals? Like, what if you 10x those goals? What would that mean? And just go a little crazy. Think a little bit outside the box, or like really dream. Don't restrict yourself. Give yourself a chance to really dream a little bigger than you normally have, and then see if the blessings come, and or the income comes, or the business idea comes, or etc., and see what happens. You might be surprised. You might surprise yourself with what's really possible, and you might be able to accomplish more than you think you can. We often can do a lot more than we think we can, and this is something that I'm sharing because I need to believe it myself, and I'm working on it for myself. Shane, any last thoughts before I close it up?
No, I guess accentuate what I said there is just work hard, believe, tweak your goals, be flexible, and just work every day, and you'll eventually get there. And I think for this next year, we really just have to step it up. If you're just starting, really focus, cut out the unnecessary things, the things that are not essential, holidays, vacation, those types of things, whatever it takes to get you to 3 months to 6 months to a year with those essentials. I don't think there's any time to waste.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we have time, but no time to waste, if that makes sense. Like you got to be focused, and you got to be get in on it. So thank you all again for watching and being with us here. For those that were with us live, thank you for being here. We got a great crew: Field Tac, Utah Mike, Joseph Gendro was in here for a minute. I saw. I hope I probably killed that pronunciation. I'm sorry, brother. What else? We've had several folks commenting in the chat. So we love having you on with us live. If you can be here, if you can't, please make sure you hit the like and give us a 5-star rating on whatever podcast platform you're using, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Apple Tunes, whatever it is. Sorry. But again, just remember our good old friends over at survivalfrog.com. I just ordered a bunch of stuff over there, got a great discount, use Prepper Talk 10, etc. And Prepper Talk 10 at checkout, you get a 10% off all of your stuff. Everything stacks. They're having great deals. They had a great set of deals for Friday, Black Friday, and then Cyber Monday. And then I'm sure they're going to have some more great deals for Christmas. We just got some great stuff too. Just ordered it, and I just got an email that it's been shipped. So super excited about that coming in. Take care, guys. As always, make sure that you are staying ready-minded and keep your head on a swivel, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.
See you next week.